on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
It was really insane. And I was like planning on going to grad school, and I was like, I'm just going to write. Like, there's no reason to go to grad school. And I believe I hit 5 figures a month. I want to say probably 6 months into it.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers, no more barriers, no one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Show with me, James Blatch.
And me, Mark Dawson.
Mark, welcome to the show. I'm welcoming you to the show. You could welcome me to the show, a co-host. Anyway, I was all presentable an hour ago when we tried to record this, and I've now been for a run. And if you're watching on YouTube, I look a sweaty mess, but I also will show you my shirt. I'm in a Cancer UK shirt because on September the 3rd, I have entered my first ever half marathon at the age of 55. And I'm training for that at the moment. And I'm not a runner, I have to tell you. I feel like I'm dragging a sack of potatoes around every time I run, but you know me, I do like a challenge, always have to challenge myself. And I lost my mother. My mother was one of the very many people who died from pancreatic cancer in 2005, far too young, in her 60s. And so I do a little bit for that every couple of years or so. And it's just one of those diseases, Mark. It's unlike all the other cancers, the stats on it, the survival rates just have not shifted in 40 years. It's a horrible disease. It doesn't present itself until it's too late, classically. So much work to be done, and treatment and discovery. And if you'd like to support me, I'm just turning this into a little advert for my fundraising, Mark. Hope you don't mind. You can do. I'll drop a link into the show notes and in the groups. But it's justgiving.com/fundraising/James-Blatch. Do you reckon I can get around a half marathon?
Yeah, I think you will. Absolutely.
Have you run one? I know you used to run quite a lot, didn't you?
No, I don't run anymore. I do run. I was thinking actually at some point we should probably do a little kind of author health podcast, because I've got a couple of Peloton machines below me where I am now. So I have.
You've got 2 Peloton machines. Why do you need 2?
Yeah, I've got a treadmill and a bike.
Okay.
So, and they're both excellent. I mean, I'm loving the bike at the moment. So I'm probably riding every day, and then mixing up with running as well. So yeah, Peloton, I am so impressed with this. It's so good. Speaking of plugs, if anyone wants to follow me on Peloton, I think I'm Paperback Writer, or Pback Writer. You can kind of tag and follow friends. So I'm doing that, and then also I haven't told you this actually. We've got especially when it's so hot. I've got there's a company called 8 Sleep, and I told Mr. Dyer this last night, and he immediately went to look and potentially buy one. It's a little kind of mattress topper that sits on top of your mattress, and it feeds into what looks like a desktop PC tower. And what it does is it has little pipes running through the topper that you can't feel. And it sets the temperature, so you can have cold water running through, so you can lower the bed temperature to whatever you want, or raise it. So I like sleeping cold. So my side of the bed is very cold. Lucy's side of the bed is a little warmer.
I thought you were hot in bed.
Well, very absolutely. Yeah, so that's great. And you wake up in the morning. It also does things like it takes your pulse through the night. It knows if you're tossing and turning. It will kind of present you with how long you've been in sleep, what your quality was, when you entered deep sleep, REM sleep, all this kind of stuff. So it's really good. I mean, it isn't cheap, but I've been very impressed with it. So yeah, I think we might leave it there now, but we should probably do a kind of a author health.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, general fitness obviously is good for sort of alert levels and so on, but there are specific things about writing which we do need to look at. And
I'm standing at the moment, so if you listen very carefully, you listen now. Can you hear my desk going up and down? On YouTube, you can see it's very quiet, but on YouTube you can kind of see the camera going up and down because I have a standing desk. And
I mean, mine goes up and down as well, but I'm sitting. I actually don't stand very often at the moment because I find I'm on my feet a lot.
I do stand quite most of the afternoon. I'll stand. So it's
that's very good. That's very good. Yeah. So there are specific things. Obviously, with typing and dictation's a good way around that, but not everyone's going to dictate. So yeah, no. I absolutely think we should, and also talk about mental health side of it. So we'll put together an episode on that.
Yeah,
for sure. Mark, would you like to welcome our new Patreon supporters?
I'd love to. So Tom is making it a little easier for us at the moment. So we have Caroline Towers from Bingley in the UK, and Susan P. Baker, Old Man Smithers, probably not his real name, and Kimberly Gibson, Kimberly from Texas, Susan and Old Man Smithers, we don't know where you are, but thank you anyway, and Rachel Dacus, also no address. So thank you to Caroline, Susan, Old Man Smithers, Kimberly and Rachel. Thanks for supporting us on Patreon. Your support is very gratefully received, and it helps us keep putting the show on for 350 weeks or something without missing one, which is pretty good, I think.
Yeah, really good. Do you think Susan P. Baker, Old Man Smithers, Kimberly Gibson is one entry? Because there's semicolons between them. In Texas.
You don't understand how semicolons work, do you? Then? So no.
Well, why are they on? I don't understand. I don't understand the punctuation there at all. To be honest, why are they on one line and the others are on separate lines?
Yeah, that's true. Why's he done that for? I don't know. We should probably ask young Tom to explain himself.
Thomas, get in here. I keep him under the stairs here. Well, I'll tell you what. Patreon is an interesting way to start this episode because of the interview, which is coming up in a moment. Patreon has been used on steroids by our author to absolutely ignite and fuel her campaign. And she has completely owned Patreon and fundraising and meshed it with writing. And it's a very, very interesting interview. Whether we'll all be able to do something like that Emilia is doing, I don't know, but certainly you will get some tips that could raise money for your career from this interview. So stay tuned for that in just a moment. Before that, Mark, we are going to mention the Ads for Authors course, which I assume is in its last few days. Is that right? When does this go out?
This goes out next Friday, doesn't it? So, yes, it'd be about 4 days left, if I'm right about that. And so, yes, we should mention that. So, we'll also mention the webinar that I did last night with Janet. So, Ads for Authors closes probably in about 4 days' time as you're listening to this. So if you want to learn more about the ads course, go to selfpublishingformula.com/ads, ADS, where you'll get all of the information on that registration page with testimonials, walkthrough, some videos, the curriculum, and also live chat. So you can speak to probably to John, Catherine, or Tom. Sometimes me, but mostly those guys about questions about the course. And if you're interested, I'm going to put you to the test here, James. If you're interested in the webinar that we did last night, we had 2,250 registrations.
Wow. And
about 800, 900 people were there live, which is pretty good, actually. Turnout rate of nearly 50% is excellent. And it was on a Getting Started with Amazon Ads webinar with Janet, which was very detailed, lots of good stuff and tons of really good questions actually from the audience as well. Now we did record it. I'm just trying to think, do we have that on a page?
We do have that on a page, and I know the page because
well done.
Organised, and I knew you were going to ask me. So that's at selfpublishingformula.com/learn Amazon-replay. So selfpublishingformula.com/learn Amazon-replay. We'll put all of these links into the show notes. And also post them to the group. If you're on our mailing list, I think we'll send that. It was a really useful webinar. I think we'll send it out to everyone anyway. So you would have perhaps got that if you're already on our mailing list. And if you're not on our mailing list, well, what are you doing? There's 240,000 authors as part of the SPF community helping each other, raising the tide for all ships. And you can join the mailing list at selfpublishingformula.com to get all the golden nuggets that you need.
Golden nuggets.
Golden nuggets.
Sounds like fast food.
Or Las Vegas casino. Okay, so there we go. We've got Ads for Authors closing this week. selfpublishingformula.com/ads for authors. Your chance to get on board with the detailed instruction on how to run paid ads to sell your books. It's all about selling books. All about selling books. Not about writing books. Not about looking good holding a book. Not about getting your books into shops. Or joining a vanity press or any of those other things that could possibly happen. It's about you as an indie author selling your books and hopefully making a profit from that. Okay, right. So, talking of selling books and making a profit, Emilia Rose has cracked this in a slightly unusual way. She is big into crowdfunding. She's big into a very direct relationship with her readers, for which they subscribe at various levels and get various services from her and various access to stories and so on. It's quite a complex ecosystem that she's created, but it's a very, very profitable one. She's done brilliantly at this. Very, very impressed with Emilia Rose. Let's hear from her, and then Mark and I will be back for a chat.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Emilia Rose, welcome to the Self-Publishing Show. Good to have you here. We're going to be talking about selling books in a slightly different way from the kind of KDP, Kobo, running Facebook ads, a different way of engaging with the audience. But why don't you start off, if you don't mind, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Emilia Rose. I write steamy romance, both contemporary and paranormal. I've been publishing for about 3 years now, but I didn't go the traditional self-publishing route. I started on Wattpad actually, which is like a free website where people can write and read books. And then my husband convinced me to start a Patreon. I started on Patreon, and then I moved to Amazon and Apple and Barnes & Noble publishing.
So on Wattpad, I've never used Wattpad, I have to say.
Yeah.
So can you just explain how it operates?
Yeah. So basically, Wattpad is a free website where authors can upload their stories. Usually it's done in like a serial way. So authors will publish one chapter at a time with a cliffhanger, get people really engaged and interested in it. And they'll publish consistently, probably like once or twice every week. And readers can read that material for free.
Okay. And is it used by authors who simply want to write and have their stories read, or is it used by authors as a kind of lead generator, a loss leader, if you like, to then sell the stories somewhere else?
So most people are using it right now. They're mostly beginner authors or authors who are just writing for fun. They don't not usually, there's a lot of authors there who are selling books. But a lot of authors are not, and they're just writing for fun. And they're not really utilizing Wattpad as like a business tool right now.
So you wrote your stories to Wattpad, but you did decide you did want to monetize it. In fact, I think in your notes you said your husband said you should monetize it.
Yeah. So basically, I was like, when I started writing, I had zero confidence in myself, and people I didn't think anyone was going to read my stories. And so I was putting it off and off and off. I was like, I'm not going to monetize. Why would I do that? No one's gonna support me. But my husband convinced me to start a Patreon. And so I joined Patreon, and I uploaded a few extra chapters, early access. So I might have been up to chapter 20 on my Patreon, but only chapter 15 on Wattpad. And I basically said hey, if you guys want to read some extra chapters, you could come over. Yeah.
So you set up your Patreon, but you were directing your readers from Wattpad. Wattpad was your main audience, and a percentage of them came across the Patreon to you. And how successful was that?
It took a while to build up, but I started writing a really popular book on Wattpad. It kind of hit all of the romance tropes. It was steamy paranormal, sort of taboo, because it was with twin brothers and this human girl. And people just loved it. And it kind of just exploded all of a sudden. And it was kind of it was so freaky just to see people supporting me all of a sudden when they were just reading for free a couple weeks before. So yeah, once I started writing tropes, so to say, people started joining a lot more.
So in terms of the tropes, in terms of the genre, did you write steamy from the beginning because it's a big commercially popular genre, or just something you wanted to write?
It was mostly something I wanted to write. I started reading on Wattpad too, and there's a lot of romance. And there wasn't a lot of steamy romance at the time. And it was something I was really interested in. I like went to search for those books and there was not many. So I was like, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to write and see how it goes.
Basically, there wasn't enough sex and you needed to provide.
Exactly.
I mean, sex has been the big leader in many commercially developed organizations, from television to film and everything else. So why not writing? Okay, so but it is nonetheless a huge commercially successful genre, so not a bad one to write in. And you said paranormal, so when you first said steamy romance, I always sort of assume it's contemporary romance with spicy scenes, but you actually had a few other subgenre.
Yeah, so I started with writing wolf shifters.
Okay. Wolf shifters.
Wolf,
yes, okay,
wolf.
yeah.
Like werewolves.
I thought you said Walt shifters for a bit. I thought people were shifting to Waltz, like Walt Disney. But yes, wolf shifters. Yes, I'm familiar with shifting and wolf shifting. Yes, okay. All right, that sounds fun.
It was really fun. I just recently started doing contemporary, so.
Okay, so were the twin brothers wolf shifters?
Yes, we were.
Okay, got you now. Okay, so you're writing these chapters. Wattpad has proved that the audience are not just there for free books. Mm-hmm. They shifted across to Patreon. And can you give us an idea of the type of money involved? And was this enough for you to think, actually, I could live off this? Or?
Yeah, so I would say within 6 months of starting my Patreon, I was still in college at the time. And I was like making a full-time income just on my writing.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really insane. And I was like planning on going to grad school, and I was like, I'm just going to write. Like, there's no reason to go to grad school. And yeah. And so I believe I hit 5 figures a month. Probably, I want to say probably 6 months into it.
This is just, and this is this model, Patreon.
Yeah, this is just subscriptions.
Wow. When was this? Because you look quite young, so this must have been quite recently.
Yeah, this is probably 2.5 years ago.
Wow. And wow, that's amazing. Congrats. Obviously, your writing is compelling. That's the first thing to say here, is that people want to read the writing. So that was, you were Patreon, 5 figures a month within 6 months. And where are you now? What are you doing now? It's different. You're not still just on Patreon?
No. I expanded out into, I'm publishing on Amazon, and I'm a wide author, so I'm publishing as many places as I can. I'm on Radish too. I'm working on a graphic novel right now, as well as audiobooks and audio like dramas. So I try to expand as far as I can.
You sound very prolific. There's a lot of different things going on there. So graphic novels and audio dramas, not just audio books being narrated. Okay, we'll talk about all of these individually, but let me just start with the general stuff. So are you still doing Patreon? Is that still going?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm still doing the same model too, where I release my books for free on Wattpad, and I bring people over, or I try to.
And is that still an important part of your income, the Patreon subscription?
Yeah, I would say the subscriptions are 45% of my income right now.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's really interesting, isn't it? And I think a lot of people would see Wattpad as you say, just a kind of testing area before then going to KDP, but they may have missed a trick here.
Yeah. I didn't even realize I found something like that until a couple of years ago. I was like, oh, so like you can actually monetize your free readers, I guess. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, Wattpad is a website full of readers, right? It's full of readers, just readers, and you can communicate with them, and you can put products up for them.
Exactly. And it's like so social too. And the readers there are so hungry for stories. They like will devour a story in like one night and just like go on to the next one. And it's crazy. But it's really awesome to be able to like be part of that community and build stories for readers there.
And when you migrated, or when you added KDP, I should say, to your where you publish and the other platforms, did you take the stuff that had now sort of time expired, if you like, was no longer unique to Patreon, and republish it on those other platforms?
So personally, what I do, I know some people who do that, but I leave all of my work up on Patreon, basically as like a reward for joining. if people join to read one story, they can also read like my entire backlist.
Right.
So it's kind of like a Netflix for
Yeah.
authors, sort of.
A one-person Netflix. Well, that's quite.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be one of the keys to its success is that it's got that exclusivity.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're wide, apart from the fact you're quite exclusive to Patreon for your readers there.
Pretty much.
So the stuff you wrote for wide distribution, that's new stuff.
No, I just republished those stories. So yeah,
Okay.
Sorry, I might have misinterpreted your question, but I keep my stories on Patreon, and I write new stories on Patreon as well. But eventually, like six months to a year after they're completed on Patreon and on Wattpad, I'll also reformat them for Kindle.
Okay.
And yeah. But they stay on Patreon too.
Yes, I'm with you
Sorry.
now. Okay, that's all
Sorry,
right.
that
It's
wasn't
not
clear.
quite the exclusivity that I was thinking about, but so okay.
No.
Okay, so they found their wider audience. And in terms of the other stuff, you say that's maybe just over half your income from Kobo and Amazon or the other places you publish.
Yes, pretty much. A little bit over half.
And today, a new book, whatever you're working on now, we'll talk about the other stuff in a minute, but books, you'd still start with Patreon, or would you now do some of your stuff direct to the wider distributors?
I still start on Patreon. It really helps me because like the people on my Patreon act as like beta readers. So like I'll start writing a story and I'll update like 5 chapters per week. And throughout writing it, I like ask my readers like, hey, what did you think about these chapters? Do you think anything should be changed? Like, I don't like how this particular thing is going with this character. What do you guys think? And they'll give me their feedback. And with that feedback, as I write the story, I can change it a little bit, or like afterwards, I will change it before I publish it to Amazon. So it's really as clean as it can be. And I don't need to like reach out to a bunch of beta readers and be like, hey, can you read this book after it's already written?
Yeah.
When I really don't want to do anything more with it.
Yeah. Well, that's fun for the readers to be a part of that process, isn't it?
Yeah. A lot of my readers like love being a part of the whole creation process because especially on Patreon, they're with me from like the moment I start the story to the moment it's published, and all like the little things. They get like the first view of covers, the first edited versions of the books, and pretty much everything.
On the other hand, writing like that slightly terrifies me. The idea that, because I stopped writing for a couple of weeks here and there and then start up again. And the idea that you're basically having to deliver and there's people hungry for the next chapter. Once you've started, you can't stop, can you?
Not usually. I don't personally. It kind of motivates me to get the book done.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times I'll be like, all right, well, if I didn't do it this way, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm kind of bored of the story right now. Let's like set it aside for like 12 months and we'll come back to it. But I probably won't come back to it at that point. So this kind of like motivates me to continue writing stories. And when I started, I wasn't doing like 5 chapters per week. It was like 1 extra chapter per week that people received. So it was like, it wasn't anything like that I couldn't do.
Is there a downside to this? I mean, what if you're halfway through the book and you think, do you know what? I've just got everything wrong here. I need to the stuff I wrote at the beginning, that should be the end or whatever, which happens occasionally when someone's writing a book. Can you do that? Make that bigger change? Say to the people reading it, I'm going to start again here, or?
You could. I've never done that personally because I tend to write a lot cleaner. I don't plot my books. So I write as I go, and a story kind of just like unfolds for me quite easily. But I have in the past, especially with my earlier books that I put on Patreon and then Amazon, I've made huge changes to them during the final version. So if I do something like that, I will complete the story the way it is on Patreon. Then I'll do all the edits that are huge, and then I'll give the story back to everyone on Patreon and be like, hey, I rewrote this basically. If you want to read it, go ahead. If you don't, that's fine.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds a really interesting way to write. To write. In terms of your productivity, I mean, what sort of word count are you doing a day to produce these chapters?
So I'm writing full time. So writing is pretty much all I do. So I do write a lot. I want to say I push out like 1,000 chapter or 1,000 word chapters per week. So probably 10,000 words per week.
Okay. That's some going. Do you write every day or 5 days a week or?
I don't write every day. I write when I have an update due, which is probably not the best, but it works for me.
You write when what?
Oh, sorry. When I have like a writing update due, like before my post is due on Patreon.
So you are very deadline driven.
Yes.
But you've set yourself up in such a way that there's deadlines all over the place for you. I mean, they're always coming around, right?
Yes. But it helps motivate me to finish.
Yeah.
Or else I would not finish.
I bet you would, but
Maybe.
But that is definitely one way to do it. Okay, so in terms of genre, have you stuck with a kind of paranormal, steamy romance with all the stuff you're doing, or have you moved away from that at all? Or?
So yeah, right now everything is steamy, whether it's contemporary or paranormal. I started with paranormal, but my readers wanted me to write contemporary stuff like Mafia or Billionaire, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, but I tried it and everyone loved it. So I'm kind of like juggling both right now. Okay.
I suppose the other thing that occurs to me writing steamy is it can be difficult to advertise and market. And we know quite a few, successful steamy romance authors who've had their accounts shut down at various points. And so this is a way of circumnavigating that.
Yeah. And it depends because Patreon has done the same thing for me too. They've forced me to pull down one of my stories.
Oh, really?
But the majority of my stuff is still up, and they haven't removed it. But yeah, it's really hard being a steamy romance author sometimes, just because you constantly have that fear of being shut down. Yeah,
there needs to be like an OnlyFans for authors and readers, a platform that's just there for that. Although I think OnlyFans once decided they were going to stop doing it, but I think they worked out.
I know.
They worked out very quickly. That was a silly thing to do. Yes. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I mean, that is it's one of the trials and tribulations, isn't it, of writing steamy stuff? You either basically portray it cover-wise and blurb-wise as something else, or you deal with the policy guidelines crashing down on you from time to time. You must know your readers really well. You've basically built up your entire writing based on your readers' feedback.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you have a hardcore of do you know them personally now, some of your readers?
Yeah, some of them I do. I have like a Discord, or when I started on Discord a lot. And we have different channels where people talk and just chill out. And a lot of them will just like gossip about my stories in that Discord. And it's really cool. And it's really cool just to like interact with them and see their comments and their reactions to each story or each chapter. So.
They're aware that you were there?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I've read it, so
yeah.
They're aware.
Would you describe yourself as outgoing or, because you feel you'd say you're introverted or?
I'm very introverted.
Sorry, I'm getting very personal here. I'm just trying to think about whether this is a route other people could do, because it seems to me it requires quite a lot of gregariousness, is the right word, but you've got to be engaging and want to engage all the time. It's not for everyone, I think.
No, I don't think it's for everyone either. But it's really nice to be able just to like host a community, even though like you might not be a big part of it. Like your readers want to come together as like a fandom and just like gossip about your work. And a lot of the conversation, especially in Discord, is reader led. Like I don't like pose questions a lot there specifically. They'll just like go on and do their own thing. So I don't think serialization is not for everyone. And that's basically what I'm doing here. it's really hard to write like that sometimes. And a lot of the times you do have to be active and you have to like respond to comments and just like let people know like, hey, I'm here. I want to know what you guys think. But yeah, it definitely is not for everyone, but everyone could do it if they wanted to.
Yeah. So basically your readers are the outgoing, gregarious ones, and you can just sit there reacting to that and still be a little bit introverted, which is how we are as writers generally, isn't it? So, okay. Now you mentioned audio and graphic novels as well. Let's talk about them. So let's start perhaps with the novel, the comic book, whatever you want to call it. I know some people get upset when you call graphic novels comic books, but just so people understand what we're talking about, is this going to be similar genre? Can you get away with that in a graphic novel? Be spicy?
Oh, I think so.
Okay.
That's what we're doing. We're doing a spicy graphic novel.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But it is actually an adaptation of one of my stories. So I have a story called My Werewolf Professor, and everyone on my Patreon pretty much voted that they wanted to see this as like illustrations or a graphic novel. So it's currently being made into one. I found like an amazing artist who does spicy stuff. And I'm going to do basically the same funnel into like my Patreon through Webtoons. I've
not heard of Webtoons.
So Webtoons is basically an app for graphic novels.
Okay.
Sort of like a Wattpad or a Radish for graphic novels.
Okay.
But they don't allow spicy stuff.
Right.
So,
God damn them.
Yeah. All the like not safe for work stuff is going to be on Patreon for my readers.
And will Patreon be okay with this?
We'll see. I hope so.
I mean, let's get to a little bit of the detail here. And I'm obviously going to go completely out of my comfort zone here, but spicy books, and I've read a couple for authors, are pretty explicit. That's the whole point of them, right? So is the graphic novel going to be, I mean, it's going to look a bit like porn, isn't it, if it's drawn like that? Or do you have to, is it moderated in some ways? This guy got experience of how to do that?
So we just started doing one of the spicier chapters just recently. And what I did is basically I have like a clean version and a not clean version. So like the clean version will have like dialogue that's not dirty.
Okay. And
the not clean version is definitely going to be basically straight from the book. Very explicit. And it's like what I write, I actually have I have a plot with a lot of my stories, so it's not just like sex.
No, I didn't think it would be for a second. No.
But so yeah, there's.
No, but what I'm saying is, there's a big difference to reading a chapter in a book, which is steamy, and it's kind of fan service is partly what the book's there for.
Yes.
And physically seeing it, even if it's drawn, it's like a film. You could have a romantic film, right, that has sex in it. And it's very different if you see the sex. That's not a film anymore. That's the kind of the point. I used to be a BBFC, for like a film examiner in the UK. So it's something we did talk about. But there's something visceral about seeing sex, right? That changes the nature of the document. So I'm just wondering where you are in terms of how that works now.
Yeah. So it's going to be very close to that line.
Okay.
It's going. Have you seen 365 Days? It's this romance.
I don't think I have. No.
Okay, it's like this steamy romance movie, and it has like a story sort of to it, but a lot of like on-screen sex, but without like showing like body parts.
Okay.
So it's going to be sort of like that.
Okay. I love having this conversation. You can tell I'm a middle-aged British man talking about this sort of thing. But hopefully we navigated it. So that's really interesting. And are you seeing, you already got some of the drawings coming back? Are you sort of approving them as you go through? Is it shaping up well?
Yeah, it's looking really good. I'm really, really excited.
And when will that come out?
So it takes a long time to draw all the little pictures. So the official book is probably not going to be out for a year or two, like on Amazon, but I'm going to be updating pretty much a chapter by chapter starting in the fall.
Okay. On your Patreon.
Yes, Patreon and Webtoons.
Okay, and Webtoons, yes. for what they allow. Okay.
Yes, for what they allow.
And obviously, if that goes well, and how much does it cost? Is your Patreon per book, or is it just if you're a subscriber, you get access to everything, as you said, or?
It's per month. So if you pay per month, you get access to pretty much everything.
And are there levels, tiers of membership, or?
Yeah, I have a $3, $5, $10, and $25. Soon I'm going to be retiring the $3 tier and just having 5, 10, and 25.
Okay. And what is the split of what you get for that?
So $3, you get pretty much all of my content except a couple stories. $5 is audiobooks as well as one extra story. And then $10 is pretty much everything below plus one more story. $25, we're doing not safe for work and safe for work art per month, like character art.
Okay.
Per month.
Okay.
As well as everything underneath.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Now you mentioned audiobooks there, so that's part of this as well. So how are you doing audiobooks? Are you producing those independently yourself?
I'm going through ACX right now.
Okay. So does that mean you're exclusive to ACX? Can you put them on Patreon then, or?
I'm not exclusive.
Oh, you know. Okay. So you go through ACX, you do the split with a.
I just pay up front.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you get.
So I pay up front for the audiobooks and then do non-exclusive, and then I could pretty much put them anywhere.
Yes. Okay. So and how do you put them on Patreon?
Right now, I put them on Patreon through BookFunnel. They have like an audio section where you can upload audiobooks, and it's just easier. Patreon has like a place where you can upload audio, but it's not that good. It's really bad, actually.
Okay.
So yeah, we're going through BookFunnel right now.
Yeah. And you're also selling them, presumably, in a traditional way.
Yes.
Yeah. Wide again.
Yeah. Yes, wide.
Okay. Well, this sounds like it's a really interesting way of going about it. I mean, you've got a foot in both camps. Part of you is I'm going to use the word traditional in the wrong place here, but a traditional self-published author. And the other half of you has grown really organically through your readers, which is I would imagine, great for your writing as much as your selling.
Yeah, it is really nice to have my readers be in the process with me. And what's really cool is a lot of the times, so I write these like one shots. So they're like 1,000-word short, spicy story every week.
One shot. I like it.
Yeah. And I will come up with a bunch of them. And after a while, when I'm ready to start a new story, I'll have everyone on Patreon vote for which one of those one shots they want to see me make into a novel. And a lot of the times, like the one shot that they choose is also going to do really, really well on Amazon because it's like what the readers want.
Yeah. Do you ever feel pressure from your readers to do stuff and not want to do it? Yeah.
Yeah, I had my first series. It was just supposed to be like one book and done. But I felt so much pressure to write a second book, like a sequel. And the sequel turned out really bad, in my opinion. But I mean, it was like split. A lot of people hated it. A lot of people loved it. So I ended up just finishing it off as a trilogy. But I don't know if I would ever do that again. That was a lot of like pressure for me.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're incredibly entrepreneurial and imaginative with the way you go about it and very energized to work with your authors. And probably credit to your husband for suggesting that you start selling stuff as well right at the beginning.
Yeah, he gets all the credit for that.
Yeah, but
it would have never happened.
The other 99% of it, which is doing it, definitely goes to you. Yeah. Okay, well, that sounds really good. And I'm sure people will want to check out everything that we've talked about. So where can they find you, Emilia?
Yeah, so my Patreon is just Emilia Rose Writing, but I also run a Facebook group called Subscriptions for Authors, where I try to give out weekly information on how to build a subscription or membership platform for
subscriptions for writing. Sounds great. Yeah. And what's next for you? I guess you're going to keep an eye on the success of the graphic novel.
Yes, we'll definitely look at that. Jumping into audio dramas as well, adapting a lot of my stories that I've already written into just different forms.
Yeah. Actually, let me just
That's
ask
where
you
I'm going.
before we close out. Let me just ask you about the audio dramas then. So, are you doing those with ACX as well? Wasn't even sure if they offer that. But.
No, I'm doing that. I have a casting company that I've been in contact with, and we were trying to find. So the audio dramas are going to be very spicy. So I had to go with a casting company who does like that kind of stuff. So yeah, not through ACX, and I don't even know if I would put them on Audible. They'll probably be exclusive to my subscriptions at first, and then we'll see how they do, where they go.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. It's a different experience, isn't it? Do you write? Are you adapting your book and sort of writing it out like a script, or are you doing a new story for this?
No, we're just adapting them into like script form.
Yeah, into like a radio play.
Yes.
With a lot of panting and hot breath.
Yes.
You've got to get the right actors.
I know.
Yeah. Well, I'm so impressed, Emilia. It's really exciting hearing about your success and doing it so closely related to your readers, which is such a great thing. As I said, not just for your writing, but for selling, obviously, as well. They're your tribe, aren't they? They're your supporters, your foundation.
Yeah, I love them. They've really helped me so much, just build and just be confident in my writing and expand. And it's been an amazing ride.
Yeah, and it's not over yet.
No.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Emilia, and thanks for giving out. We'll put all those details in the show notes. I know people will definitely want to check out this because we don't hear it very often. It's an interesting way of operating.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
There you go, Emilia Rose, really using Patreon.com. I know you haven't heard this interview yet, Mark, but it really is a work of art. How hard she's worked at building up this system, and people get certain chapters, they get bonus content, they get to write. Take part in the writing process as well with her, which is amazing. I mean, it's a lot to manage and keep in the air, but it's certainly been very profitable for Emilia and brilliantly done.
Yeah, there's a few authors doing that now, and it's crossed my mind a couple of times, but I just think for me personally, I don't have the time to, and I would feel obligated to really deliver value all the time.
Yeah,
and I think I start to feel quite guilty if I took a month off or they didn't get what I'd promised them. So that would be stressful for me. So probably not something that I would do. But I think it's great that authors are finding ways to make a regular income outside of the stores. It also ties in with, I'm seeing quite a few authors now using Kickstarter really well. So, I mean, Brandon Sanderson is the obvious one. Do you know how much he made with his Kickstarter?
It's done quite well, isn't it? Something like $50 million now.
Yeah, $45 million.
45.
Which is, I mean, absolutely unbelievable.
That'll fund the covers for his books and everything, won't it?
Probably just about. Might be able to if he's economical about things. It's lovely to see that. See people kind of thinking laterally and doing things in a different way. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, brilliant. In fact, I think I interviewed Britt Andrews earlier this week. The interview will go out in the next couple of weeks, and Britt is just she adds something, I think, on Patreon. It's in the interview that people get access to the writing process while she's going along. She does that, so I think it's increasingly happening. But there was a real masterclass in that from Emilia. I was very impressed with her. Very good indeed. Good. Okay, Mark, that's it. I'm going to go and have a shower. Probably.
I'm going to go now. I've just been, as we've been talking, I've been joined outside the window by 8 swans. I'll just take a quick picture. So, for those of you who are looking on YouTube, I'm just holding up to the camera. They weren't feeding them. They've learned now that I will feed them.
Yes.
And they're just going to sit there until I do. It is very bucolic today. Got swans, and a kingfisher is fishing off the bridge. So it's.
Excellent. I love seeing kingfishers. I very rarely see them around here. You do occasionally a little flash of electric blue, but
they're very easy to spot because they are so bright. But they're reasonably rare. But there's a pair who live outside my office here. Is
it 8 swans on the 12 days of Christmas? How many swans is it? Maybe it is 8.
No swans. Is it?
Is it no swans?
Swans at Christmas. I don't know.
Well, the 12 days of Christmas. There's swans. Aren't there swans in there? No, maybe not. Okay.
Pretty sure there aren't. I might be wrong.
It's a little bit early to be talking about Christmas.
I haven't got time to check now, have I? But no.
Now, remind me, Mark, for next week, forget Christmas. For next week, I need to have planned, I think, our stops on. John and I are going to do a couple of testimonial pickups before Vegas, and also we're going to have drinks in the Sharktooth Tavern in Florida. So I must tell people the details of those in the next episode, because we're getting close to that.
That's on the Friday, isn't it? But yes,
that is the Friday. Yeah. So I think we may have already announced that day, but I do want to make sure that I'm mentioning it. Otherwise, it's going to be you and me standing in a bar with John.
God.
So that'll be 23rd of September.
Is it?
Yeah. Is that right? Yeah, 23rd of September. The Sharktooth Tavern.
20th, 21st. Yes, 23rd, yeah.
The Trade Winds Resort, St. Pete Beach. And we are going to go, so John and I are going to be in, I think it is Ohio and Chicago in November. So if you're in that area, somewhere like Columbus, Dayton, there's another place we're going to go to whose name I've forgotten. Yeah, maybe it's Cleveland, and then Chicago. And we'll definitely have drinks in Chicago, I think. I've already got somebody working on that, but we are looking for people to come and descend on. We won't stay with you, but we do require coffee.
You might do. I wouldn't put it past you.
No. Okay. All right. Look, that's it. Thank you very much indeed to everyone behind the scenes who makes this podcast possible. And thank you very much indeed for our excellent guest today, Emilia Rose. We will be back next week. All that remains for me to say is it's a goodbye from him.
And a goodbye from me and the Swans. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with The Self-Publishing Show.